Alright, we're recording a late video here. We're just gonna be talking about a deck profile. I'm gonna try to make these videos more often. Deck profiles of stuff I play because a lot of people are interested in some of the decks I play because I usually play some pretty wacky, some pretty silly, and some pretty goofy strategies. So today we're gonna be looking at one of my favorite decks here, or one of my most recently favorite decks, because I just started playing it, and yeah, so let's just get into it. This is going to be Dogmatika, or rather Ritual Dogmatika. So first off, we go in by the card by card. We're playing 2 Max C because this is Master Duel. You might want to play 3, but personally, just with how my luck goes, I find that 2 is good enough. Because unless you go second, you really don't want to open this card because it doesn't do much for you. This is one of the few decks where Max C doesn't do much for you. Um, Going first, anyways. Then 3 Diviner, a very important card for the deck. You could probably cut her down to 2 because she does take up one of your normal summons, and she's not the best normal summon in the deck. So that is just a thing to keep in mind. A couple hand traps here. We're playing 2 Olga and a Ghost Spell instead of Ash because we're currently in the middle of a Sprite format. And these 3 cards are just a lot better than Ash against Sprite. Anyways, now on to the best normal summon of the deck, and that would be Dogmatika Ecclesia, of course. Not only is she a very good normal summon that searches you pretty much any Dogmatika card you'll need from your deck, she also has a funny little effect where she can't be destroyed in battle by extra decked monsters, which is surprisingly more relevant than you may think. Okay, so generally speaking, Ecclesia is the one that we want to make as big as possible, and I'll tell you how to do that in the next couple cards. Um, Fl Flordelius here, believe it or not, this monster is female. She's actually the Iris Sword Soul, and Despian Cordialis. I'm not sure how to say that name really. Um, but the armor becomes the Despia fusion, and the Iris Sword Soul is the girl inside of here. But anyways, this is the best card in the deck. This is your boss monster, and this card just does everything for you. So this is the card that you always want to have in your hand when you end your turn. You don't want to summon this card to the field turn 1. You want to keep her in your hand. And the reason for that is you're waiting for your opponent to special summon from the extra deck, which is usually decks like Exosister that require your opponent to do something are not that good. But this particular like something that your opponent has to do, it's almost every deck is gonna summon from the extra deck at some point, unless they're on like Labyrinth, which this deck does admittingly have a very bad matchup against. But we're not worried about that, are we? We're not worried about that. So anyways, the other thing that this card does, why you want her in your hand, is because when they special summon something from the extra deck, you can special summon her, and then immediately negate the effects of a monster on the field. This takes priority over any quick effects. This happens as soon as she hits the field. So it shuts off a lot. Like, it interrupts certain effects, which is important to know. And that negation is something that a lot of people don't know about because you have to have a Dogmatika monster on the field. So let's say you have Ecclesia on the field. You used her to search something turn 1, and you search Fleur-Delius. Okay, you wait for your opponent to summon from the extra deck, you pop a Fleur on them, you negate that shit, and you hopefully shut them down. Um, the third thing that this card does is she boosts all of your Dogmatika monsters by 500 attack permanently every time a Dogmatika monster on your side of the field declares an attack. And that is one of the ways that you get Ecclesia really big. Um, yeah. So that's Fleur-Delius, the most important card in the deck. Sorry I talked about her so much, but like I said, she's really important, so it was necessary to spend the time on her. Okay, Maximus. This card is okay. This is a card you almost never want to draw because it's very hard. It's not hard to bring out, but it also doesn't really do much. Um, Maximus is basically a free summon after you use something like punishment, and basically it has some good applications. Like I'll show you some targets in the extra deck that you can use with this guy, that are pretty good. But would definitely only run one of this card. I've seen some lists with two or even three, and I just don't agree with that because this card is a brick. I will not lie to you. If you open this card and like not no way to get a extra deck monster in the GY, it's a brick. And it even if it's not a brick, it's not really like the best opener. But anyways, these are the two cards you want to be sending with Maximus on your turn. So you send Fossil Warrior Skull Knight, and you send Fossil Machine Skull Wagon. So what these two cards do, Skull Wagon pops a spell or trap by banishing itself from the graveyard, and Skull Knight banishes, not banishes, but destroys a monster by banishing itself from the graveyard. So you basically activate Maximus, force them to mill two cards from their extra deck. You mill these two guys, and you get two pops. It's an okay combo. Um, okay, and then White Relic of Dogmatika. This is the main ritual monster you want to be special summoning. Y you want to be using Dogmatika Clematity to summon her, not Macabre, if it can be helped. Because you want to use Clematity to send either Herald of the Arclight, which nets you a search when it's done, or send Natis, which nets you a pop when it's sent. And yeah, and what she does is she does a couple of things that is good for the deck here. When she is ritual summoned, you select two monsters on the field. These can be any two monsters um, on either side of the field. And you get to choose which of those two monsters gains attack equal to the other monsters. So let's say you summon her and your opponent has like a Baron on the field, right? 3,000 attack. Well, you can select that Baron and select, let's say, the Ecclesia that you have on your field. This is another way you make Ecclesia big. Um, you add 3,000 attack permanently to that Ecclesia. And that is the first thing she does. This is a really good effect because you really need a way to make your monsters as big as possible. Because you are kind of just destroying stuff during the battle phase, besides for punishment and your various extra deck pops. Um, okay. And her second effect is very important. Level 8 or higher Dogmatika monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. So this makes your Fleur-Delius, it gives it battle protection. And whenever your opponent special summons a monster once per turn from the extra deck, you can look at their extra deck and send one monster from it to the graveyard. And that's what she does. She does a lot. She's an important summon, and she's sort of like the backbone of the deck. She's not the powerhouse of the deck, but she's the backbone. White Knight, here's your other ritual monster. He's alright. You summon him with Dogmatika Clematity, or you summon him with Dogmatika Macabre by usually by through Titaniclad here, which is the Albaz monster that is related to Dogmatika. Okay, so he does a few things here. He's sort of situational, however. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can send one monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. So this is usually in the TIS because you want to pop right here. And if you do, you look at your opponent's extra deck and you send one monster from it to the graveyard. And this card gains attack equal to half the combined attack of both the monsters sent. And unfortunately, this isn't permanent, so rarely is this guy ever in attack mode. You usually just summon him in defense. Okay, now let's get into the spells and in the traps of the deck. Starting out with the Duster. I just think Duster is really important because like I said, you already have a bad matchup against stuff like Labyrinth and Eldritch, so you just want to main deck this. Um, pre-prep Pre-preparation of rites. As you know, it does basically everything in a ritual deck. It adds one ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and then it adds a ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, whose name is mentioned on the ritual spell. So an important thing here an important thing here. Due to this second to last line here, you can add one ritual monster from your deck or GY to your hand, whose name is mentioned on that ritual spell. You cannot add Dogmatica Climatity because it does not mention any particular Dogmatica monster. It's a really weird interaction, but you can't add this one off pre-prep. Meanwhile, you can add Dogmatica Macabre because it mentions both of them. Okay, Nadir Servant, if we had this at 3, we would be playing 3. This is basically just a search card for you, and it sends something from your extra deck to the graveyard, so it gets you started. Secret Village of the Spellcasters is tech because all of your monsters, besides for Diviner, are spellcasters. So you can activate this, and they can't activate spell cards while you have a card on the field, which is really good. And then Climatity and Macabre. We're just gonna call Dogmatica Climatity and Dogmatica Macabre Macabre and Climatity, as I already have been doing because those words are fucking mouthfuls. Um, so all you need to know about these two ritual spells is that they are not traditional, as in they don't usually use cards from your hand or field. They can, but they don't usually. With Climatity here, you this one uses stuff from your extra deck as material, so this is the better of the two. And Macabre uses stuff from your graveyard, which is more of a follow-up ritual. So what you want to do generally is you want to open Climatity or get to Climatity first, which is hard because of the restrictions I just mentioned a little while ago. But if you can, you want to open Climatity, um, go for this, use this on your first turn, and then you want to add Macabre if it can be helped, so you have a follow-up play the next turn. Because they're most likely gonna destroy a ritual monster, it's just sort of facts. It's a big target, and they usually do destroy it first turn, but you're able to get it right back with Macabre. And that also allows you to use Relic's effect the second time, because after she leaves the field, that permanent attack boost does not go away. And then 2 Call by the Grave, 3 Imperm, 3 Dogmatica Punishment. This is probably the only Dogmatica card I don't have to explain to you, because a lot of decks play this card. 2 Summon Limit. This is a personal opinion, just because I think the current meta with Sprite, Summon Limit is a very good floodgate to have, but you don't have to play any floodgates in this deck if you don't want to. For example, you could really replace either Secret Village or Summon Limit with something more along the lines of a hand trap, or you could replace them with board breakers. So it's really up to your preference. Personally, I just like the floodgates in this current format, so that's what I'll be using. Okay. Do I really have to explain the extra deck to you? I mean, you're not really using this. You're pretty much sending it. Um, you're playing the 5-headed dragon or just any monster with big attacks so you can destroy big things with Dogmatica punishment, and that's the only reason you're playing that. I already explained these cards. Everyone knows what they do. Titaniclad nets you a search. He's a really good card in this deck. Um, Wind Pegasus, when something on your side of the field is destroyed, you get to banish something non-targeting. So this is a good card to send. Is it non-targeting? I don't want to. No, it is not non-targeting. And it doesn't banish. It targets a card and shuffles it back to the deck. It's something you send defensively on your opponent's turn. Baron. Okay, so you actually can make Baron in this deck. You can actually make level 10 synchros in general, but this is the only good one in my opinion that's generic. And how you do that is with Diviner, you send Herald, this makes Diviner level 6, and then if you have a level 4, like Ecclesia for example, that is 10, so you can make Baron. It's a neat little tech, and a lot of people don't expect it, but definitely don't expect it to be something like that this deck can do consistently, because it's definitely not consistent. It's something you do every once in a while, and you catch your opponents off guard with it. And with that, that is the card by card for the deck, and I will put in some replays after this. So yeah, just a few things about this deck, just why I like it so much. Personally, I didn't think this deck would be good in this current meta, especially with the advent of Sprite. But it turns out the deck is actually... Sorry, I had to take a drink of water there. It turns out the deck is actually a lot better than you may think. Just because of how it interacts, and if you play against Sprite or something like Branded, and you know how the decks play, you can send important cards in their extra deck to the graveyard that really slows them down. For example, with Sprite, sometimes you can just send both of their elves to the graveyard before they have a chance to play either one. And with Branded Despia, of course, you can send the Mirror Jades, or you can send the Lubellion, which makes the plays a little more awkward. And with that, my favorite thing about this deck really is just panning out your opponent's extra deck, seeing what they're playing, and because you get that knowledge almost every game with this deck. So you get to see how much of a scrub they are, like what kind of cards they're playing in their extra deck. You get to have a little laugh at them, and it's just a good time. But without further ado, let's get into the replays.